And I remembered to share my screen. Yay. Hopefully y'all can see that. All right. Welcome everyone. I'm Cindy Myers. I'm called the Animal Listener, but today we're going to be covering the human topic, intuitive listening webinar, and we're going to be covering the topic of cycles, not bicycles, but cycles, as in frequencies. So with that, let's get ourselves going here. So here's a few things we're going to be covering. Just going to cover some basics that I need to let you know about. And then we're going to talk about how everything in nature has cycles. We're going to talk about thresholds, not the kind that you go over the door, but thresholds of they're talking about equilibrium type thresholds. And we're going to get into techniques to practice. And I do encourage you to try this at home. So those are some of the topics we will be covering today. And again, if you're new to Zoom, please type your questions in the chat box. For those of you who have voice capability, I will be able to recognize you once we're done with the webinar or with the presentation part. But type it into the chat or the Q&A box so that you don't lose the question. And I will get to it when we're through with the presentation part. So with that, the housekeeping stuff, disclaimer, if you're not feeling well, please call your doctor. And if it's a medical emergency, call 911 or your physician. I don't diagnose illnesses, but what I do is support your body so its natural healing abilities can work alongside with your doctors. Okay. All right, a little bit about me. Yep, I have a degree in aerospace engineering, and then I got a master's later as I was working as an engineer. Worked for the Navy actually as mostly most of my career I worked on radars, and now I say I am a radar. But then while I was doing that job, I got my master's in counseling and step psychology. And now I live up in Oregon and on an alpaca farm, and I work as a medical intuitive, working both with animals and humans. To me, it doesn't matter what species it is. So let's get into the topic today. I wanted to talk about cycles. I guess maybe partly because I really I'm yearning for spring, so I'm thinking nature cycles. And I think that's one thing that we all understand are those types of cycles. But everything in nature, including our bodies, all work in cycles, in frequencies. And as a medical intuitive and an empath, that's how I pick up energy. I sense the frequency. I sense it in both your physical body, your organs that are operating at a certain frequencies, and then your emotions. The emotions actually have their own frequencies. And so when everything is working optimally, your organs, your liver, your pancreas, your stomach, all of those have its own natural frequency that it likes to operate at. When it isn't working right, there's a distortion to it. It starts to not uh, work at its proper frequency, and it's a range. There's a range in there, so it's not working in its optimum range. So if something is well, you can tell if you have a fever, right? If you're not feeling well and you get sick and you have a fever, guess what? Your temperature changes, right? You can feel it in your forehead. You can feel your body heating up because all the cells, the healing cells, are rushing to the area to try to combat whatever germs that need to be combated with, right? And so your body heats up. And there's an energy distortion happening, and that is a frequency. The cells are moving faster, and it's creating heat. You can think of it like boiling water. As the water gets warmer, the molecules start vibrating. They start which is a frequency, they start moving faster. And then as they move faster, it heats up. It creates a friction, right? And it gets warmer. And conversely, it can also slow way down. So if you get really chilled, or if you get kind of hypothermic, then it gets really cold. Those molecules are moving really slow, like ice. Those things are still moving, it's just moving really slowly. So the frequency is going much slower. When it gets hot, it goes faster. So everything is vibrating at a different frequency, and I'm able to pick up the distortion. Sometimes if I'm in person with you, I can actually feel the energy distortion. It can feel like a push against my hand, a pressure, or I will actually feel the temperature difference in the body where the distortion is occurring if I'm co-located with you. But most of my work is at a distance, and I just feel it in my body there, what is not operating at its optimum. So that's what I'm picking up physically. Emotionally, it works almost the same. If you think about the various emotions that we may have, take anxiety is a good one, as a good emotion. We can have a lot of different anxieties. Right? There's anxiety of going to the dentist. There's anxiety of the weather. There's anxiety of maybe rush hour traffic causes you anxiety. There's lots of different definitions for anxiety, and each one has its own little frequency range that is associated to that definition of anxiety. So our English language is very limited where emotions are concerned. So there's like a huge broad range of frequencies that are associated with it. The negative emotions tend to have a very slower frequency, and I have a chart that kind of shows you this that I'll show you in a few moments. But the negative emotions are very slow moving frequencies, and those, because they're moving slower, guess what? They're easier to get stuck, and they act like a magnet. So that anxiety emotion that you may have that's associated to whatever the definition might be, anytime you have an overabundance of that emotion, that definition, it acts like a magnet, and it'll attract whatever's stuck in your body. Go, oh, I know that emotion, come here. And it'll go to that place in your body. So it'll get stuck in some place in your body. So it can actually cause not only an emotional habit, they create a habit, but it also can, because it gets stuck in our body, that distortion, that where it gets stuck, it can land in your liver, it can land in your stomach, it can land in your knee, it can land in your back. And so those balls of energy that keep getting kind of stuck in that place creates a dam for your natural energy flow getting to that spot. So everything's going around it. And that is what causes the distortion. And that's what I'm sensing in my body when I tap into you. So that's kind of how that works with frequencies and cycles. And when I talk about cycles, if you look at that graph, every time you see, if it starts at the bottom, the waveform, it goes to the bottom, goes up to the top, and down to the bottom. That's like a cycle. If it's distortion, it may change in the amplitude or the length of it. So I'm able to sense what's going on with that. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about chakras now. Chakras are like power sources, and like their own individual power sources. And we kind of think of them as 8. There's 8 main ones, like 8 major hubs, power hubs. And so each one has, just like our tissues or our organs, each one has its own frequency range that it likes to work at optimally. If we have an issue in those regions, then guess what? That's not going to work at its optimum level, and it's going to be vibrating in a distorted value. So when we balance or when we work on clearing our chakras, opening up, where what we're trying to do is get it into its optimum frequency ranges. So each chakra has its own natural frequency range. But when we look at it, we tend to look at things in 2 dimensions, maybe 3, uh, and it doesn't quite work that way. It's not that simple, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it isn't. It's a lot more complex because nothing works in its own little hermetic, sealed little individual realm. There's an interaction between it all, and it needs to cohabitate with each other, right? So if there's a distortion in one, it'll put a pressure on everything else to adapt to that frequency distortion. Something else is probably working harder because the one area isn't working right either. So everything is trying to adjust. If one thing is out of operation, if 2 things are out, then everything else is trying to adjust to that, keeping into that balance as a whole system. So when we work on our chakras and trying to balance them all, we're really trying to tune our whole body and keep that optimum range going. Okay? So when I talked about threshold earlier, I like this chart. I found this picture. I thought this was kind of cool because I like the line in the middle. Think of that as your threshold that we're trying to maintain. And when I've talked to in sessions or in past webinars, I'll talk about that threshold. And when these, we all have a lot of trapped emotions in our body, and they may not really be impacting our life until they build up enough, until they exceed this threshold. And once they exceed this threshold, they either create a pattern of behavior that's affecting our life in some way. Usually it's detriment, or it causes a physical issue, or it can be an and or, not just one or the other. It's an and or, and it's quite often an and statement. But once it goes over that threshold, then we have a problem. And so what I'm doing is removing those trapped emotions, is trying to get it below that threshold so that your body again can start working at its more optimum level. That threshold, though, isn't static. There's some variant, it's always adjusting depending on your situation, depending on what's going on with all your different chakras, with your other organs. That threshold is moving up and down. But what we want to do, though, is as we're making that threshold to be as efficient as we can, that equilibrium, but we really want to get those trapped emotions below and have good padding so that if you get a rough week and a lot of stresses or emotional upset, that it isn't going above that threshold that's causing a problem and a distortion. Okay? So we want to, but what I also liked about this picture is it's showing you the complexity of all the different vibrational impacts of different organs, all the chakras interacting, and there's different sizes happening. That's exactly what's going on in your body. It's a very complex thing. And to add even more complexity to it, it's not just your body that's being affected. You're transmitting. We're all acting like little mini radars where we're transmitting out, we're receiving energy in. So we're experiencing others around us, and we can also experience what's going on collectively, societally, amongst other humans. Our animals can pick up our energy, and we can pick up theirs and what they're transmitting out. And of course, then we can also have more of a universal impact to that threshold and cycles. So you can think about the lunar cycle. We all understand that, where whatever phase of the moon, that can impact us. Everybody who's worked with the public and know about full moon, you kind of get some people that act a little oddly sometimes at a full moon phase, right? And then those who follow astrology, I'm not an expert at all in astrology, but those that study that area, those impacts from a universal element can impact us as well, right? And those cycles. So cycles have huge impact, not only in our at our cellular and microscopic and electronic level, electrons, but also at the very large scale, at the universal, you know, stellar realm. So, so that leads to the ripple effect, you know, and what is happening in your home life can impact us. And again, that equilibrium, our body is constantly trying to adjust to all that's going on, not only in our body, but what's going on around us. And so I kind of like to look at it. I had the image the other day of a mobile, you know, like a children's mobile. And I found this picture. I love this picture because they're crocheted. I'm into knitting and stuff like that. So I love this picture that of a mobile, because that really kind of shows how we're always trying to constantly go in a balance. You know, if the mobile is, if something tilts, right, it tries to get back into that equilibrium place. And that's what our body, our chakras, all of that stuff is trying to do, is keeping us in that equilibrium homeostasis realm. So when we get out of sorts, when our body isn't working right, when our emotions are overwhelming us, then we really want to get rid of some of those trapped emotions so that our bodies can help keep us in that equilibrium homeostasis realm a little bit easier. Um, just to share one more story, this morning I was trying to think of a nice metaphor for today's topic, and I was out doing my morning chores of cleaning up after my alpacas. And it's been really tough the last week because of our snowstorm. I haven't been able to do a thorough cleaning and taking their poop out to my compost area because of the snow. I couldn't get my wheelbarrow through all the snow. We had over 3 feet, which is very unusual for my area in Oregon. And so I finally was able to get a path. I made kind of looked like a cross-country ski path for the wheels to get through to the back. But I really had a hard time getting it back there today because the poop was so heavy. And it just went, wow, this is such a metaphor for trapped emotions, because it weighs you down. You know, when we carry so much crap in our bodies, it just totally weighs you down. And how much more effort it takes to do a normal chore that would have taken me, you know, half hour, 45 minutes to do, not hardly break a sweat, was I had to use every ounce, every muscle. I had to take literally five breaks to push this wheelbarrow back to my compost pile, which would have been a no-brainer, not very hard to do, with twice as much in the wheelbarrow. But that's how hard our body has to work when we're carrying so much baggage. And that's what these trapped emotion is. It's just baggage that we're hanging on to that is serving no purpose anymore. We're not, those emotions aren't helping us. The experience is long ago, but because those emotions, we couldn't burn them all off. They're just chemicals that our body creates. And so if we can't burn that stuff off, it has to get stuck in our body. And we carry it around, all that blocked energy. We're carrying it around, and it makes the work so much harder. And so if we have an emotional week like my week was, it was really challenging. And I noticed how much more exhausted I was during the day, even though I was actually doing less physically some days. It was a different physical work. But once things were kind of, the crisis was over, but there was still too much snow to deal with, I was actually doing less physical work than my normal day, but I was exhausted. And it was all emotional, stress, helplessness, feeling of frustration, all these extra emotions that I'm not used to having in a day anymore. and they were exhausting. I was literally going to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I'd be out. I would be passed out cold, get up maybe to go to the bathroom, but then go right back to sleep. And I was sleeping a good 8, 10 hours, which is really unusual for me. And then want a nap in the afternoon. So I needed to sleep a lot because of all that heaviness of those extra low frequency emotions that just weighed us down. So getting rid of that stuff, and I could feel it in my body as well. I didn't feel as well. I definitely wasn't operating to my most efficient. And so getting rid of those trapped emotions, I was clearing like crazy. And I was using the tools that we're going to be talking about in a second because they were really, really valuable in processing and getting through that stuff, that higher emotional state, stress state, which I'm really not used to. So before I do that, here's this nice chart of showing the lower frequencies and how the higher frequencies are the positive emotions, the love and above. You'll hear me say that when I say when I clear stuff, I'll tune you to love or above. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm tuning you to those frequencies. They're kind of the difference between those higher frequencies is like eating a whole food versus junk food. So the body knows exactly what to do with it. It goes into your body. It's pure. It's where healing happens is in those frequencies of love or above. Okay, so that's where I'm tuning most people. I try to tune you to those frequencies, and then you can see that the negative emotions are very slow. They're very low frequencies. So and they tend to get very easily stuck in our body. So let's get into the techniques of what saved my keister last week during the stressful time of what we call Snowmageddon here in Oregon. And it was very simple techniques. They need to be simple because when you're in the stress state, when you're in the negative emotional ranges, you're really in that fight or flight response system. It was actually important to be in it, especially the first 24 hours of when I was in the beginning of the storm, because I really needed to be in that hypervigilant reactionary mode. But once things calmed down, I didn't want to be in that anymore. I needed to be in my thinking brain. And actually, even when I was in that reactionary brain and needing to be more in that state, I still needed to think. And so I used these techniques, and I do use them. But they had to be simple. So the first thing I needed to do was breathe. We need to breathe because when we get triggered and we're in those low frequency emotional state, in that fear state, in that panic mode, in that anxiety mode, we breathe really shallow. So we want to breathe fully, and sometimes I'll do breathing in fours, where I'll take a deep breath on a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, let it out on a count of 4, wait a count of 4. Do that 4 times, and I'm in a calmer state. But I want to take a few good deep breaths, and then I may do some gratitudes. And again, gratitude is a very high frequency emotion. Your master chef brain is going, oh, I know what that memory is, or whatever you're grateful for. I will pour those emotions, that memory of those chemicals into your body. That's countering the chemicals of the negative emotions of the panic, anxiety, stress. And actually the higher frequency emotions like gratitude will often trigger your parasympathetic response system, which is the calming. And once you can get into that part of your brain, now you're in your thinking part of your brain, and you can come up with better solutions than just react. Okay. And so for example, last week, that first night, I'm hearing trees cracking and limbs falling to the ground, the crashing noise scaring the bejeebers out of me, right? And went out, saw fence down, my boys took out my fencing for where my males were. And so I had gratitude right away because I did a head count. Everybody was safe. Everybody was okay. So I had something to be really grateful for. I did some breathing and assessing as I'm breathing. I kept breathing. And then I would say, okay, what would it take to deal with this problem? I can't fix the fence right now. So, oh, I know, I'll move them into my barn stall area. It's not optimum, but I can keep them safe in there. So I came up with some solutions. Then it was, okay, what would it take to get them in there? Because they're afraid. Problem solving. And I kept breathing and coming up. And that phrase, and you want to remember that phrase, what would it take? It gets you into the problem solving. It gets you to some solutions. And it's very action oriented instead of sitting in the stewing, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? That's tied to your fear state where you're in the hamster wheel spinning and not going anywhere. The breathing, the gratitude, and that phrase, what would it take, is what helps you get out of that spinning cycle and gets you into an action cycle. And I did exactly those steps, these techniques, to come up with really good solutions, instead of just being in a panic, going, I don't know what to do. So um, it really works. It's great to practice it before it's in a real emergency situation, like what I was in last week. But it still works no matter if I'm in a truly emergency type of situation where animals' lives are in danger, or mine might be in danger. It gets you into your thinking brain. It helps minimize how much negative emotions you're collecting into your body. And then when it's calm, then yeah, I was doing my own clearings, and we'll get into some demos, and I'll show you how we can clear some of these trapped emotions out. And believe me, I was clearing a ton of trapped emotions out of myself last week. So these tools work. It helps us get through these periods of stress with more ease. If there's old habits and old stuff that's collected over the years, why do you want to carry that? That's like carrying that heavy poop to the barn or out to the compost pile, and it's so much harder to deal with, right? We want to lighten the load. Let's get rid of that stuff that isn't serving you anymore. That's weighing you down, making every day a whole lot harder. Let's make it a whole lot easier on ourselves, so that you can reach your dreams and find your courage, get inspired, and live your most authentic life. That's my passion, is to help people get to that place, to living their most authentic self. Okay. So with that, I'm going to open it up in a second to your questions. I have these webinars regular, so if you're interested in more of my webinars, go to my website at beananimallistener.com/events. And another place to go is go to join my closed Facebook group called Your Energy Healer. On that site, we get to practice learning and growing our intuition. You get a safe place to ask questions of me, to share experiences, get validation for what you're experiencing. I often do a Tuesday's teacher where I volunteer one of my animals for you to come in and practice how to communicate with them, and I will validate what you're experiencing, what you pick up from them, if it was accurate, if you're not accurate, give you some pointers, all sorts of fun stuff. And that's kind of a fun thing to do, and I try and do that on Tuesdays. And then I share articles. It's just I'm trying to build a nice community of like-minded, positive people that really want to grow their intuition and learn. Okay, so I go to that site. And with that, thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate you spending your evening with me. If you would like more information, you can email me at cindy@beananimallistener.com or go to my website, www.beananimallistener.com. And with that, we're going to open up to the Q&A section. I'm going to stop sharing, and I actually remembered to share today. All righty. So if you have any questions, put it in the Q&A box or in the chat or if you would like a demo, you can raise your hand. I have some new folks on tonight. Welcome. Love to do some clearing if you'd like to experience what I'm talking about in removing a trapped emotion. When I remove a trapped emotion, um, um, for humans, I can actually tell you what age the trapped emotion got stuck. I just need your current age. So if you're interested in learning about that, I can do that. And I see Renee, you have your hand raised. I don't know if you can talk. Well, let's try it. Renee, I'm going to unmute you. I don't know if you have voice capability. You may have to unmute on yourself. I'll try again. Oh, there, there.
Hi.
Hi, Renee, welcome.
I was gonna see, could you do trapped emotions that I might have, or
Sure.
are you just wanting to do animals?
Nope, no, this is for humans tonight. I know a lot of people on my human one ask for their animals too, so I don't mind either. But this is for you if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Do you want the age that they originally got stuck?
Well, sure. Yeah, anything you can tell me.
Okay. Do you mind telling me your current age?
47.
Okay, perfect. All right, just take me a second to tap into you, and because I'm an empath, so I feel things in my body. I do have to admit that my body's been working really hard, so sometimes I may have to ask if it's yours or mine,
Sure.
especially if it's in my if it's in your right shoulder and neck, because that's overused in me right now. Hmm. So just taking a few deep breaths to tap into you. So I'm just going ahead and clear. I'm actually not feeling anything too much out of distortion, but sometimes it comes. So let me just clear. Okay, worthless is the emotion. 29. Age 29 was when the emotion worthless was originally stuck. I'm accurate plus or minus a year. Oh, and actually does feel it in the neck because I didn't feel that discomfort a second ago. So I'm thinking it's in your neck. So if you feel, yeah, if you kind of turn your head and you might notice, notice your range of motion.
Yeah, my neck's been sore for like a week actually. So
Okay. So that makes sense then. So we want to track then to see if that eases up. Sometimes I'll do a scale like of 1 to 10 where your discomfort level is at, where 10 is the worst. So you can, sometimes it's a little subtle, or it can be very dramatic that it can be from a 7 or 8 and we go down to a 1 or a 2. So just kind of track. Is there a, can you let us know what your comfort level is right now in your neck?
I would say it's about a 5. I took some ibuprofen earlier, so it's been getting better actually over the last couple days. But
Okay. But
you
right
know,
now it's about a 5.
yeah, when I move it is when it's stiff and it kind of my muscle pulls and
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and yeah, it feels like instead of a, well, you should almost get a 180 range, and it's more like you got about 20 or 20, 30 degrees on either side that it doesn't want, it kind of stops. So let's see if we can't open that up because it's very tight.
okay.
So, okay, resentment is the emotion. 26. Yeah, 26 is the age. Oh, there. Okay, you got, I think if you turn it to the right, you have a better range of motion,
Yeah, I do.
but it's still stuck at the left. So let's see if we can open it more to the left. Low self-esteem is the emotion. 15, age 15. There. It's a little better to the left, not, and I think we have more range of motion to the right than to the left, but it's better, at least on me. And I don't know if that's true for you.
Yeah, maybe a touch better on the left. It's still kind of hung up.
Yeah, yeah. Let's try one more. See if we can't get you better. Grief is the emotion. 24, 24. There. Still easier going to the right than the left, but I think the left is a lot more open now. Oh, right there. I don't know if you can see that on your collarbone. Can you feel
Yeah.
right? Can you feel that spot?
It feels like it's kind of pulling in it's kind of on the, like my trap, like the back or the side, kind of going down into my shoulder. It feels like it's in the back, not
In the back. There's a spot right on your collarbone as well.
okay.
It's all related. It's goes
Yeah,
into your neck. So
yeah.
I'm going to clear that. Pride. Pride is the emotion. Age 31.
You said cried?
Pride, Pride, pride.
Oh, okay.
Still, it's better. Not as ouchy there. But that's going into the left side of the neck, so that's opened up the neck. Yeah, the back, the traps and all that. Those are more emotions that we could work on if you wanted to. But that's how it works. So how does your neck feel now on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think yeah, it's kind of like a 7, I guess.
We went up.
I mean, no, that it feels like I'd say better. Like if, so I guess a 3.
Oh, okay. So it went down. Okay.
Yeah, the right side definitely feels better. The left side, like you said, it's still like in my back and in my trap. I can feel
Right.
it.
Right. So we kind of work more on the front and right in the neck area, but yeah, that now there's a whole more region in the back, which is also related to that chakra chart, which would be up in your heart chakra region. So the next thing I would probably do once we release trapped emotions is rebalance your energy, because it's important then to rebalance stuff. So yeah, so we'll do a quick little rebalancing of your energy, because again, it's going to that you were vibrating at one frequency in the equilibrium, and because we adjusted because I removed some of that trapped emotions, now we changed your threshold a little bit, so now we want to rebalance you to a more optimum area and get that energy really flowing as smoothly as we can. Kind of think of it as, I like to think about it as tuning an orchestra. So getting all the instruments tuned properly. Um,
So when
because
you're
there's still a distortion, especially in your back, we can't get it to the optimum range, but we can at least get it moving more smoothly. And again, from that color chart too, I'm tuning you to love or above those frequencies. There. Yeah, that's better. Tuned a little bit better. So make sure you drink some water and keep yourself hydrated. We release a number of trapped emotions. Those are actual chemicals now that you need to eliminate out of your body. So help flush them out. A little disclaimer. I guess I should have told you ahead of time, but because those are actual emotions that were kind of like they were in a bubble and we zapped them, and now those chemicals are coursing into your body, you might actually experience like a little emotional hangover from them. Not everybody does, but some people have a little up and down of emotions for a day or two. And it takes about 24 to 48 hours to process them all out of your body. We didn't do a whole lot of them, although there was a doozy in your neck that we released, one of the first ones. Oh man, that was a good pop that opened up. And so that could have, I don't remember which emotion that one was associated with, but it was kind of a big one. And so you might have a little hangover from that emotion.
Okay. I was going to ask you, so when you're rebalancing the energy and tuning, what exactly are you doing?
Again, that because your body on all those chakras and all your organs are vibrating at a before with your energy, with all those trapped emotions and things kind of stuck, it's trying to adjust to that level of energy that was just with the stuck stuff. And so it trying to balance to that how your body was working with all that junk that it was hanging on to. So when I clear it and now it doesn't have that, it kind of wants to, like, all of a sudden it's like woohoo, it's swinging a little bit. So I want to rebalance now now that your body doesn't have those things. We want to rebalance to its optimum, how it is with those emotions now released.
Right, but what are you doing?
I'm picturing I'm seeing a lot of frequency. It's very complex frequency shifting all over the place. And I'm just kind of tuning. I'm acting like a tuning fork, getting everything rebalanced. But I'm seeing very complex waveforms. When I close my eyes, I'm seeing a whole lot of ups and down frequencies, things shifting, and it's all very, very complex waveforms is what I'm seeing.
So are you trying to like compress them, like kind of like
Compress
you
them?
like when you like when you master a CD, for example, like you have a whole bunch of different songs on a CD and they're all different volumes and whatnot, and then to put it on the final album so you can hear it at the same volume, you have to like kind of compress everything. Is that kind of what you're doing with the different frequencies?
Compressing, I'm not sure it's compressing. I'm getting things flowing. But that's a good metaphor in that you're taking things that are different volumes, yes, but you're getting it so that they work and sound uh, um, that they play well together. So it's like listening to an orchestra when they're first tuning up, or a band. They are tuning their instruments and they all have their own little frequency ranges, right? But they're tuning to a note, to their different notes so that everybody can be in sync with each other. So I'm trying to get your body in sync. And so I'm able to act like a tuning fork, and I'm going up and down your body, just kind of getting everything regulated and tuned as best I can. But when there's still a distortion, something is out of tune still. And so if one thing is still out of tune, if I made something else optimum, it would be a clash. It could be clashing. So just think of a kid orchestra. You know, everybody sounds good except for one kid that might be kind of squawky. You hear that squawk. So I'm still trying to adjust everything, even with that thing that's distorted. So your body's just working as optimally as it can, given where it's at right now. But our goal is to, as we remove more trapped emotions, we want to get to where in that natural frequency range where everything is working perfectly.
So do you use like your intuition to do that, or do you use your energy, or both? Or
and then I have guides that come in sometimes, and they supercharge everything, and they give me a lot more details. When I'm in a quick moment like this, I'm not getting as much detail as when I'm in a individual session. And I can really get in and tap in and see a whole lot more detail of things. And as we talk more, then we can really piece together at a very more depthful. We can see where the habits are more come out. And so I can provide coaching and helping you shift your language and how you perceive things differently. And as we release that, so that the habits that are formed by the trapped emotions that are holding you back, we can get rid of those. A lot of people right now, this time of year, we talk about cycles. What happens about this time of year, that at least in the United States, that everybody, most of us have to deal with? Any ideas? April, it comes up in April, but a whole lot of people are starting to worry and stew over it. But it's a deadline that everybody has to deal with.
Right. Yes.
Taxes. So those people that have that have a hard time or want to avoid dealing with taxes and getting their taxes in, and that is looming over their head, and they start worrying about it, and then they say, I really need to get my taxes done. I should be working on my taxes. Well, but I have to do laundry. oh, all these other things that all of a sudden have to be taken care of instead of dealing with your taxes, and you procrastinate. Guess where most people that come in start calling me right now? About right now, I start getting more and more clients, and they have lower back problems because there's a frequency range of money that likes to land in our lower back, which would be tied to that chakra. And so I get a lot of lower back. So somebody contacts me and go, oh, I need some help with my lower back. I go, oh, have you done your taxes? And they go, no. They think I'm very intuitive on that one, but I go, no, it's just experience. And it's because they haven't done their taxes. And so we clear that. Then we use those tools of saying, okay, what would it take to get our taxes started? And once we release stuff, to take those deep breaths, do some gratitudes, and go, okay, what would it take? Oh, I can get my receipts out. I can start checking my spreadsheet and getting my stuff together to either go to the accountant or to fill out the form. So getting rid of those trapped emotions, it gets us into that action place instead of staying stuck in what I call the lizard brain, which is that little part of our brain that contains the fight or flight response system. And so when that's running the show, we get into that hamster wheel where we just spin. So getting rid of the trapped emotions, using those tools gets us into action mode. And then guess what? Your lower back stops hurting because you're in action mode. So that's how that kind of can help. And when we get into more detail with in an individual phone call, we can really get into more depth of why if that stuff is landing in your neck and your back. That's really, you're carrying a lot of stuff. It's like Atlas. What are you carrying on your shoulders? So we want to reframe that so that you're not having to carry the whole load. Make sense?
Yeah, interesting.
Great
Thank
question.
you.
Thank
you.
you.
You're right on about my neck pain. You're
Did the ages make sense to you?
Nothing jumps out at me as being something that I can
Doesn't have to. A lot of times it may come later, or it'll just be a thought. It just as well that you don't, because as soon as you start thinking about whatever the memory is, guess what? Your body is making those chemicals of the memory, and we don't want more of that. Those emotions. We want the positive emotions, the gratitude. So we just be grateful that those trapped emotions aren't in your body anymore, and they're leaving, so they don't have to be a part of your system anymore and holding you back. So a lot of people they don't even, once they start working with me after a while, they don't want the ages anymore. They just say, get rid of it. What if we need to understand something more, I cannot release them out of your body until we understand what's going on in more detail. Your subconscious will not let me continue if we need to understand it more. So I can't release it. But most of the time, and that's rare, most of the time your body just wants to get rid of it. So once you have enough confidence that this is really working, and the curiosity kind of where, yeah, I know I know my garbage. I don't need to understand anymore. I want to be focused on the positives.
Right.
And then we just release. I have a client, I don't even tell them what emotions I'm releasing. I have them focused on their intention of where they want to head while I'm releasing, so that they can just stay in that positive state. Have to be in that higher frequency as I'm releasing stuff. So they're kind of tuning themselves as we go. And that's very powerful for them. That's nice. So thank you for that, for participating.
Yeah.
Anybody else? We have a couple more minutes. Any questions? Anybody else want to get a try at this? Valerie, you were new and typed in earlier. Are you would you want a little demo? No, you don't have voice, but you can type in there if you do. If you don't, that's fine too. That I might pick on. Okay, Valerie. Okay, if you want to do something with your animals, that's fine. I just need the name of your animal and what it is. It's a little harder if I don't have a picture over the internet, but and I don't have a voice of you, but I can try connecting with your pet. And when I do my animals and emotions webinar, which is the next one coming up, I ask to send the pictures in one. It's fun to share who your cute animal is. Okay, Lucille, she's a Doxy Chihuahua mix and rescue that has separation anxiety. Yeah, rescue ones, they can get that. But okay, let me see if I can tap into Lucille. Okay. Okay, the emotion is unsupported. I'm clearing that. That's very common, especially in rescues. Fear. Okay, clearing that. Disgust. Disgust there. Rejection. Clearing that. So there's some other tools that we can talk about that can help support Lucille. Yeah, I'm not sure what the disgust was about. But uh, uh, why don't you email me, or if you're interested in doing a session, or come back on the animal and emotions one, we'll talk about some tools that you might want to provide that you can do and that you can have on hand that can help with separation anxiety issues. Getting rid of more trapped emotions is part of it, but then there's some things, because it's important to replace it what we do want and really help trigger her parasympathetic response system, because again, that all those trapped emotions are over that threshold where I don't think we got it below the threshold yet. And so there's some things you can do that helps trigger that parasympathetic response system in a regular, um, on a daily basis. And the more that you do that, then you're changing that threshold and giving yourself some padding, and we can clear more stuff that can help accelerate it, and help or improve out of that separation anxiety issue. But we want to have more tools in your toolbox. So we can talk about that, and I'll get more into that in the Animal and Emotions webinar, which is the next one. Or you can go to my YouTubes and watch some of the old ones of the Animal and Emotions and learn a little bit about some of the old techniques that we use and tools that we have available for that. Okay, so thank you for that. Michelle, your neck is a mess from sitting at a computer all day and also listening to people rant about their low or non-existent refunds. Hey, so you're getting it from the other end. Okay, so let's help you clear. I don't know if do you have voice capability, Michelle? I can try.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So let's go ahead and see if we can't clear some of that off of your neck.
Yes.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10 before we get started. It just cleared.
It's clicking right now.
I just felt it. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10's the worst, about where is it at?
Probably about an 8. It's been worse before.
Okay. Well, that's pretty high. An 8 is pretty bad. Let's see if we can knock it down a little. Unsupported. Do you want the age with it, Michelle?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you give me your age now?
61.
Okay. 37.
Unsupported.
Yep, unsupported.
Okay. Makes sense.
Frustration. (48) Age 48.
8.
Is it kind of painful, like under, like is it like right under your right side, like right below your skull?
It's basically on both sides.
Okay, I'm feeling it really more on the right. Maybe that's just because that's where where it wants me to release first, but it's like right under. I'm feeling like right under where the skull kind of comes into the neck. I guess that's, I don't know, is that the occipital? I gotta retake my anatomy one of these days. Abandonment.
What age is that?
And I'm trying to identify that. Oh, you were in the womb. 0. So it was probably something your mom must have felt. Probably the last trimester is usually when it kind of gets into you and stuff. Doesn't have to be, but that's often when it occurs. So when the mother gets a strong emotion, emotion can land in any of the tissues. You're part of the tissues. So it either crosses the placenta or just sees you. You're just part of the tissue, so it gets stuck. Those are great ones to get rid of because we don't have a memory or a language for it, and we can create a these act like a magnet, and so we keep attracting more of that emotion. And you can talk till you're blue in the face, but it's not going to really understand the core because it happened before your verbal center ever got started, right? You didn't have language back then, but you have memory. So it's a great one to get rid of. Okay, taken for granted.
When might that be?
49.
Yes.
49.
Pardon?
49 is when this particular one, it could have layers, so it's 49.
Mm-hmm.
And how does it feel now?
Maybe a little more mobile.
Still at an 8?
Maybe a 7.
Let's see if we can knock it down a little more. Failure is the emotion. $41. Okay. It's crunching a little bit more, but it's actually loosening up. Is the crunchiness feels like it's starting to break some stuff up. Helplessness. Helpless. Age 22.
Hmm.
A little better. Can you check in now? How's your neck?
I don't know.
About the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure have a lot of them, don't I?
Oh, that's nothing. Oh, okay. Let me try this. Let's try. I'm going to change the technique slightly. Speaking of that, I'm asking what the core emotion causing your neck issue is. So I'm asking your higher self what that might be. Guilt is emotion. 29. So now, because I found out the core emotion that start kind of is the main, it's like a main frequency that's causing the distortion. There's going to be a bunch probably of that in that range. So they're going to call it guilt, but it's going to be different forms of guilt, but it's within that frequency range that's causing the massive distortion. So let me see how many of those there are. So is it 103.
Oh.
So that's not a surprise. So
No.
that's what I can release tonight. But that'll take me a little bit.
Jeez. I'm a mess.
No, that's very common. It's really common. Like I said last week, with all that stress, I was releasing these core emotions in 50, 60, 70 at a time.
Wow.
And sometimes twice, 3 times a day. So that's very common. I've had as much as 1,000.
Oh, okay.
So no, this is what I can clear in right now in the moment that your body can still process out, and they're in that really whatever that frequency range that is causing that distortion. I'm going to see if your body will let me do it. Normally it takes me a few moments to do it, but I'm going to ask if we can kind of accelerate the clearing. Maybe I can do it in batches, just because we're in the webinar format. Um, okay, see if now,
Oh, it just cracked.
and did the discomfort level shift?
Yeah, it might have gone down another one.
Yeah, if I could, I could probably do a little more thorough for you at some point. Put it in this webinar format. It would be me being silent for a while, and that's not
Mhm.
the best for a webinar format. So if you'd like me to do more for you, just shoot me an email and we can set something up for you. Or if
Yes.
you'd like to continue, we can probably knock that down, because there's probably other core emotions that are associated with it. We want to get rid of that crap, because that's not fun carrying that in.
Well, I was wondering, is it like in layers? Like once you get rid of some, does some more show up? Or
Yep. It's like peeling an onion away.
Mhm.
And so how your body, your subconscious tells me which layers we want to get rid of. Then sometimes it needs to settle. Then we might need to shift and coach some of your language to shift a little bit, because there's habits involved with it. There's lots of dimensions to all that. And then as you keep working on these different layers, and hopefully we get it, again, we want to get it to the point where you get it below that threshold and enough padding so that you can handle some of the stress of this time of year, whatever is triggering it, and it not bothering you. For example, I have a heel spur. I'm sure I could get an x-ray and it's still there. It used to bother me all the time. I lived with it for years and I just muscled my way through it. It was always painful, but I still try to keep up with my activities that I like to do despite it. But it was always hurting. And even when I moved up here, it was bothering me, especially this time of year when I had to wear my boots instead of more padding and running shoe type. It would really bother me. But once I started learning how to remove these trapped emotions on myself, all of a sudden it was like it went from hurting to not hurting in an instant. And because I cleared enough layers, and it rarely bothers me now. And I know there's a certain issue, it's unsupported in me, that if I get over, if I'm feeling unsupported for whatever issues that are being triggered, but I rarely feel that way anymore because I've worked through those issues and now have a very different outlook and open to being supported, that I rarely have any discomfort in my heels. And normally at this time of year, it would be hurting.
It's great.
So if we can get through those layers, then hopefully that goes away and doesn't bother you. So that's our goal.
Great.
How many layers and how long it takes, I never know. That's where I'm not psychic enough. I can't tell you, and it's true for humans or animals. I think, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. This is going to take months and months to help clear this person, and then I don't hear from them giving up or clearing. I'm like, oh shoot, maybe they didn't like the session or something, and I check in with them and they go, no, I'm fine, I'm feeling great, I haven't had any problems. So I cleared it in one session. And it's like, oh, cool. But so I never know how many sessions we need to really get it below that threshold.
Okay, I will shoot you an email.
Great. So thank you everybody for coming on tonight. This was I hope you enjoyed the topic tonight. This is a new topic that we covered on cycles. Well, we're going to have another webinar in a couple weeks for animals and emotions. So check out my website at beananimallistener.com if you're interested in my sessions. How I work is over the phone. You go to my website. I like to start people, if this is your first time working with me, we start with a starter package. It contains a 45-minute session, and then you get a follow-up 15-minute sessions, which is really important, as we want to continue the momentum of healing. So that 15 minutes gets you in the habit of not going back to square one and waiting till everything hurts again. We want to use that 15 minutes to keep that healing momentum going. So that's the starter package. It's a 45-minute session followed up with a 15-minute session. Once you purchase a package, then you get a link to my scheduling system. Pick a time that works for you, and I call you at that time. That's how easy it works, and it doesn't matter where you're located. I can help people anywhere at any time. That's the nice thing about the way I've trained myself to work is time and space doesn't matter. We can work together wherever you're located. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, Cindy@beananimallistener.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and thank you for your time. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.